Taiwan has reported that in recent days, Chinese military aircraft, including fighter jets, bombers, and anti-submarine aircraft, have flown over nearby waters.
There's a lot going on in the country, to include the military. You got Lieutenant Colonel Schiller. Meantime, in South China Sea, we got a lot of things going on. Let's take a gander.
There are plenty of things to worry about in the U.S. relationship with China, but one worry in particular has been climbing up the list recently, and that's the explosive question of Taiwan. Taiwan, of course, is the island state that considers itself.
Why does Taiwan matter to any of us in America, you may ask? Well, they make 63% of all semiconductors. We can get into the history of Taiwan. Are they part of China? Have they always been? The bottom line is, right now, they're somewhat operating independently of China. And we get everything we operate, including your cell phone, your camera, everything, majority of it's coming from Taiwan.
The one true China, but that the communist government in Beijing considers to be nothing but a breakaway province that ought to be reunited with the mainland.
So I hear the saber rattling from the media. First thing I do is go to Taiwanese news. Let's see what's going on there. U.S. Marines officially training in Taiwan the first time since 1979. So they sent a group of Marine raiders over there November 12th of 2020. The Pentagon spokesman comes out to say the reports about the Marines in Taiwan are inaccurate, but did not explain what exactly was going on. This was in November, right? Before we started seeing the Chinese flying over Taiwan and towards Japan. Fast forward to February 2021, the Taiwanese government comes out and says the U.S. Marines are training their troops on amphibious battles. So despite what the Taiwanese government has said, the Pentagon's still disavowing any knowledge of troops being there and said they still agreed to the One China policy, which means Taiwan is really part of China formally. Let's fast forward to today. This just came out. U.S. troops have been deployed in Taiwan for at least a year. So now it comes out the U.S. Special Operations Unit, this is the Marine Raiders, have been secretly operating in Taiwan to train their forces, U.S. officials said. So no more disavowing, now it's being said. Here's where the alarm bells go off. Taiwan and the U.S. have expressed concern over the 150 flights near Taiwan in the past week by Chinese military aircraft. Okay, maybe they're just doing exercise. The Chinese have included J-16 fighter jets, F-6 strategic bombers, and submarines. The whole accompaniment for warfare. The Chinese military aircraft, have not entered to the Taiwanese airspace, but they're flexing, right? We've seen with the Russians flexing. The Chinese are flexing. Taiwan is a jewel crown of China's empire with that semiconductor business and all the things we got. Now, Beijing has come out and said they'll take control of the island if forced by necessary. Top military officials testified earlier this year that Beijing is likely to try to take back Taiwan. They think it's theirs. Whether it is or it isn't, how does it affect us sitting here? We've been, we'll call it, friends with China despite all the current events. And if they take over 60% of the world's semiconductor market, that could be a problem. And here's where it gets interesting. The U.S. sold Taiwan billions of dollars recently in military equipment. Now, could just be shoring up the chess pieces. We understand that. The flights could be something that China's just flexing a little bit. But it's a new development. We haven't had troops there, in particular special ops troops, since 1979.
Of concern has been some recent Chinese activity that suggests it might be considering using military force to compel Taiwan to reunite with the mainland. Some analysts consider these Chinese moves to be nothing but saber-rattling and posturing, perhaps designed merely to stop Taiwan from declaring its independence, that is to say, from declaring its...
Now, is it saber-rattling? The U.S. apparently thinks it's not, because we've sent the Marine Raiders there to train the Taiwanese. The Japanese are equally concerned. The Chinese have also sent flights in their direction. We've got a lot of moving pieces here that I don't know are an issue, but it's something you should know about.
To be an independent state no longer interested in reunification with the mainland. But nobody can be sure, and the nationalistic bent of Chinese President Xi Jinping is a cause for worry. A more particular cause for concern has been some recent military activity by China. Taiwan has reported that in recent days, Chinese military aircraft, including fighter jets, bombers, and anti-submarine aircraft, have flown over nearby waters. Japan also has reported that Chinese military aircraft have flown into Japan's self-declared air defense zone as well. And all these moves come shortly after a fairly contentious meeting in Alaska between Chinese officials and officials of the new Biden administration.
Unfortunately, that's where Bilkin, I believe his last name is, got embarrassed by the Chinese. There's a contentious situation going on. And how much and how connected are we? We've seen that recently with when the shipment of goods slows down, how it affects the economy. And the semiconductor market, that's the big jewel in the cap here for anybody.
A meeting at which Chinese officials apparently said some fairly aggressive things about reunification with Taiwan. One other area of concern is that if the Chinese actually believe their own rhetoric about how the U.S. and the West are in the early stages of an inevitable decline, they may conclude the West is...
Well, I think we'd agree we're in a decline. Is it going to be permanent? I don't know. We've got a lot of infighting going on. We've seen what's gone on with the military with respect to Miley. We've seen Schiller. It's just a lot of discontent in the troops you wouldn't see in the past.
In no position to respond to a Chinese move against Taiwan that could lead to miscalculation. None of these moves mean that military action is either imminent or inevitable.
Now the question is this all just saber rattling? Are we in a position to support Taiwan and our allies in the region, include South Korea and Japan? Taiwan semiconductor gold is hard to pass up. It's a real threat. We've sent Marine raiders there for last year to train the Taiwanese for a reason.